Hello, my dear students. Today we will read another short story. It's yet another short story that has been translated from Malayalam into English. The story is written by Ashitha. The Malayalam title of the story is Nilavinte Nattil, and it has been translated into English with the title In the Moonlit Land. So before we start reading the story, let me give you an introduction to the author. I always take care to incorporate the image of the writer into my lessons. I do this because you can familiarize yourself with the writer. We have always heard about the writer Ashitha. We have come across this name earlier, especially because she passed away last year. So it's important that we recognize their faces as well. We have heard about their names, but I'm not really sure if you have, seen them in real or at least seen their photographs. So I incorporate their images so that you can identify them. And you should be able to identify them with their faces as well. This is something which literature students lack. They always come across names. They have heard numerous names in classes from the textbooks, but rarely they are capable of identifying them from photographs or from their faces. So this is the reason why I incorporate their images into my lessons. So let's quickly go through their literary as well as biographical details. Ashitha was born at Payyanur in Thrissur district on the 5th of April 1956. She was an Indian writer who wrote in Malayalam and was best known for her short stories, poems, and translations. So she is not just a short story writer, but also a poet and a translator. Her earliest literary endeavors were in writing poetry, but later switched over to fiction. Though some of her short stories depict the monotony and dullness of women's life, so this is a sentence that you must, listen carefully. Her short stories depict the monotony and dullness of women's life. This is something which writers in Malayalam literature has rarely grasped through their works. The monotony and dullness of a woman's life. She was more concerned about the erosion of spiritual values from the life of individuals. So she has focused on the monotonous and dull life of women or women's life, and also the erosion of spirituality from individuals' life. Something which Matthew Arnold did. I hope you remember the poem Dover Beach, which also talks about receding values. This versatile writer has authored more than 20 books and also wrote short stories, poems, and even children's books. So she has also tried her hand at writing children's literature. She has also translated many famous works. Her famous works include Vismaya Chinnangal, 1987, which was her first short story collection. Then came Apoornaviramangal in 1993. ഒരു സ്ത്രീയും പറയാത്തത്, a peculiar title. This came out in 1998. And Mazhameghangal, which was published in 2003. She has also written a novel with the title Mailpili Sparsham. It was published in 2001. She has also received a number of honors. Let us look at some of them. She has received the Kerala Sahitya Academy Award for Story. She has received Padmarajan Award, Lalitambika Antarjanam Smaraka Sahitya Award, and also a Dasheri Award. This writer, she fought cancer for several years, but later on she passed away at a private hospital in Thrissur on 27 March 2019. That is why I earlier said that Now, you might have come across this name earlier because she passed away last year. Now, something about the story that we are about to read today. The story is taken from the collection Apoornaviramangal, which was published in 1993. It exemplifies the characteristic features of Ashitha's fiction. The reader is in for a shock at the end of the story, a subtle shock that one experiences while reading O. Henry's short stories. If you haven't read any of O. Henry's stories, then you better read stories like The Gift of the Magi, as well as The Furnished Room. You come to a twist at the end. You come to a turn of events at the end, which actually unsettles the reader. So, such a kind of unsettlement is what you witness or what you experience when you read Ashitha as well, especially the story that we are about to read today. The narration moves from an apparently realistic track to a plane of fantasy towards the end of the story. So that is the transition that we are going to experience. Initially, we feel that everything is realistic, but at the end, the story winds up on a note of fantasy, or it ends on a fantastical realm. The protagonist of the story is Watchman Shekhara Pillai, who is to retire from his service at a mental hospital. The events that happen on the final day of his job forms the plot of the story. So that is like the thread of the story. It's a story about Watchman Shekhara Pillai, and the day that we are going to experience as part of the story is his last day at the place where he's serving. It's his retirement day, and the events that happen on his retirement day. That is what we are going about to experience. So let's start reading the story. It was his day of retirement as watchman of the mental hospital. So at the very outset, we have a hint at the setting of the story. The setting of the story is a mental hospital. Now, he has been working there. Our character, even though we haven't come across the name as part of the text, we know that it's Shekhara Pillai, but as part of the text, we haven't come across the name. So the protagonist of the novel, the short story, he is working at a mental hospital, and it is his retirement day. The only day a man feels a deep and inward isolation. So look at how the author has tried to incorporate ideas related to the retirement day. The author describes the retirement day as the only day a man feels a deep and inward isolation. Cane in hand and nursing an inexplicable grief, he stepped out into the hospital premises on his usual beat for the last time. His usual beat means his regular route, the path that he used to regularly take, when he was on the job. So after reading the first paragraph, we understand that the protagonist of the story is a watchman of a mental hospital, and it is his last day at the hospital as he was about to retire that day. The hospital compound was spacious. I hope you know the meaning of spacious, having ample space. Trees grew on both sides of the pathway, their shadows lengthening in the light of the setting sun. If one looked at their shadows, all the trees seemed alike, just as the patients with their shaven heads and hospital clothes looked alike. So we have a description regarding the setting. We also have descriptions regarding the patients. Everything looked alike. The surroundings, the inmates, they all looked alike in their own respective terms. His mind was filled with that morning's farewell party. So there was a farewell party that was conducted that morning, and that farewell party was obviously for the protagonist as he was retiring that day. So this person's mind is so full of the farewell party that happened earlier. Watchman Shekhara Pillai, who retires after 30 years of meritorious service. So this is where we come across the name of our protagonist, Watchman Shekhara Pillai. And here he quotes a statement being made on him by some other person. Let's see who that person is. Watchman Shekhara Pillai, who retires after 30 years of meritorious service, so the superintendent had said. So this was a statement made on Shekhara Pillai by the superintendent of the hospital. The speech was a good one, and when someone from behind grunted hoarsely, grunted means to utter a low and harsh sound. So someone from behind grunted hoarsely. A few patients had also clapped. So it was like somebody gave the patients an instruction to clap. When Sister Lucia gave him the nurse's parting gift, a cane, everyone, including the superintendent, had burst into laughter. So this is the gift that he got from the side of the nurses. He was gifted with a cane because he always used to carry a cane around. Whenever he used to take his regular route, he used to do that with a cane in his hand. So probably they all wanted to crack a joke by gifting him a cane. He too had laughed. He knew of his nickname at the hospital, Cane Pillai, and took pride in that appellation. Appellation means words by which someone or something is called. That is what appellation means. He too had laughed. He knew of his nickname at the hospital, Cane Pillai, and took secret pride in that appellation. As he did his rounds, twirling the cane, a violent silence also marched behind the bars of the hospital cells. So all of the inmates, they were in fact afraid of this particular character called Shekhara Pillai because he always used to walk around with canes. And as we read ahead, we will understand that he did not just carry the cane; he used to give them lashes using that cane, and that is probably why there was a silence that permeated throughout the space when he walked around. He used to boast that his cane was better at managing patients than the medicines prescribed by the best of doctors. So Shekhara Pillai, he even made an exaggerative statement. He said that his cane is more than enough. It's better than the medicines that are being administered to these patients by the best of doctors. In the hospital, it was the sole means of communication between the normal world and the insane. So the inmates understood, whatever that the cane said. I hope you understand when I make that statement. The inmates understood when the cane spoke. So the communication between the insane and the sane world was done by this cane. Both the sender and the receiver understood its language. So the language of the cane was something which was understood by the sender and the receiver, the one who beats the other person and one who receives the beating. In a sense, he was an animal tamer. Look at Ashitha describes the condition of inmates in this mental asylum. They are being treated as animals. In a sense, he was an animal tamer who taught wild animals the proper systems of the land. The sheer number of mad people he had trained during these 30 years to obey the mad ways of a world that pretended not to be mad. Ashitha also takes care to incorporate a few philosophical statements as well. You know, um, yeah, these mad people, they are forced to obey the rules made by people who pretend that they are not mad. So we are all equally mad. That is the kind of statement that the author tries to make. That evening, the watchman remembered Kochutresia. So let's see who Kochutresia is. It was he who controlled Kochutresia as she came rushing in, hollering that she wanted to chop up her husband and slice him to pieces. So, this is a character who was probably, tamed by Shekhara Pillai. We understand that there were many such characters. There were many such, mad people in that particular house, in that particular asylum who were controlled, who were tamed, by Shekhara Pillai. And perhaps this is what made him remind about Kochitresia. It was he who controlled Kochitresia as she came rushing in, hollering. Hollering means shouting. Shouting that she wanted to chop up her husband. So this is what Kochitresia wanted to do. She wanted to chop up her husband and slice him to pieces. When the cane swung up and down several times, as though silently roaring, "Shut up!" Kochitresia fell down and peed where she lay. So this is what happened later. She came hollering to Shekhara that she wanted to chop up her husband and cut him to pieces. Then Shekhara uses his cane, and it was as if Kochitresia understood the meaning. Kochitresia fell down and peed where she lay. She urinated there, probably out of fear. Thereafter, Kochitresia used to urinate whenever he made the cane hiss, even from a distance. So this is what happened later on. Whenever she heard the sound of the cane, or whenever she heard Shekhara Pillai approaching, she used to pee. For a long time, that was a source of pleasure for him. Shekhara Pillai even enjoyed this particular aspect. He used to make her afraid, and he used to see, he used to enjoy this particular instance of Kochitresia getting, frightened at the presence of him and his cane and peeing at the spot. Finally, one day, Kochitresia put an end to her life on the branch of a mango tree in the hospital premises. When the police brought the corpse down, it was the sweeper woman who prevented him from getting closer. Look at what the sweeper woman says. "Watchman, don't. Her corpse will piss at your very shadow." So this is a kind of critical remark being made at Shekhara Pillai. A critical remark being made at the way he used to enjoy, earlier when Kochitresia was alive, how he used to terrify her using his stick and his presence. He continued to walk, and on stopping found himself beneath the same mango tree. Its shade too seemed to shiver in the mild breeze that was growing heavy with sorrow. Head down and holding the cane behind him, he walked quickly past the mango tree. So perhaps he has some sort of grief in him now. He might not, have really wanted to be, he not want to actually treat her like he treated her before. He has this sorrow in his mind. Perhaps that sorrow is what is being, reflected in the environment. Head down and holding the cane behind him, he walked quickly past the mango tree. But all types of madness could not be limited to the square frame of the world, as Kochitresias, especially not Dakshani Ammas. So we confront other characters as well. All these characters, they come to us as a part of Shekhara Pillai's recollection of his life in that particular mental asylum. Let's see who Dakshani Amma is. Dakshani Amma had flung her gruel and spat on Sister Mariamma's face. But the moment his cane fell on her, she had flung her mundu away, bent forward, and showing her buttocks, screamed, "Beat me, you son of a bitch, and kill me." So these are events that he recollects, he remembers as part of his life at the mental asylum. He had been young then, and he did beat her on the loose, hanging folds of her aged flesh with renewed vigor till the cane broke. So earlier we read about Kochitresia and how she peed, frightened by the presence and cane of Shekhara Pillai. And here, when Dakshayani Amma, when she sees, or when our protagonist Shekhara Pillai, he raises the cane. What Dakshani Amma does is, she turns around, she flings away her clothes and she lays her bare her buttocks and says, beat me, you son of a bitch, and kill me. And you would expect Shekhara Pillai not to beat her, but what happens is the contrary. He actually beats her. He beat her till the cane broke. The shocked silence of the cells shrieked aloud. Mad glances wandered aimlessly, this way and that. When the cane broke, Dakshayani Amma turned and looked at him. Suddenly, without warning, the memory of Amma hit him. So when Dakshayani Amma, after the cane broke, Shekhara Pillai stopped beating her. And at that moment, Dakshayani Amma turns and looks at Shekhara Pillai. Immediately, the image of Shekhara Pillai's mother comes to his mind. From that moment onwards, he had been haunted by an uneasy feeling that no matter where he went, he was always within view of two pupilless eyes. So Shekhara Pillai felt that he was being followed. He was being followed by two pupilless eyes. Probably the haunting, imagery that came before him when Dakshayani Amma turned around and looked at him. The image of Amma that suddenly flashed before him. So he felt that he was always under the watch. It was at about the same time he had begun to feel that the bodies one ascribed forms and names to were actually inhabited by strangers. So he believed that the bodies that roamed around him were being possessed by someone else, possessed by strangers that he did not know. There was a man who became an evangelist. Evangelist means a preacher of Christian gospel. An evangelist, a prophet, Lord Krishna, and Shah Rukh Khan by turns in a single day. So probably this person has a multiple personality disorder. At times he was an evangelist, at times he was a prophet, then he became Lord Krishna for some time, and he even became Shah Rukh Khan. And all this happened in a single day. And because he had so many names, he did not have a name of his own. Finally, when the number of people in him multiplied, he had to be chained. So there came a situation where it did not just end with Lord Krishna or Shah Rukh Khan or evangelist or prophet. No, he even assumed many other characters, and therefore he had to be chained. Even today, Shekhara Pillai vividly recalled what Sister Alice, wiping her perspiration, had told him when they stepped out after chaining the man with the help of injections and the cane. The prophet who disturbs the peace of the world is worth only so much. A cross, an arrow, a cane. That is all. So we have, implicit references to religious figures being made there by Sister Alice. And what she means is that this is how world has treated them, the prophets, and that is what they have done to the person who assumes different characters in the mental asylum as well. They have used injections on him, and they have also used cane on him, and finally they have put into chains. And Sister Alice says, this is what we have done to all the prophets who have come to us earlier. The man died while still in chains. What persona had he assumed at the time of death? What persona means what character? Earlier he used to be Lord Krishna or Shah Rukh Khan or an evangelist or a prophet. So Shekhara Pillai thinks, now what persona, what character had he assumed at the time of death? Was he himself when he died, or was he somebody else? So he, kind of ponders on that particular thought. Or had he recognized himself? Shekhara Pillai felt it was a baffling question. Baffling means confusing, hard to understand. Well, what is this? Not going home today? Your wife must be waiting for you after the retirement function, remarked the sweeper woman as she walked away. So this is a comment made by sweeper woman. Are you not going back home? It's your retirement day. You are already done. You have completed your duties at the mental hospital. Now, aren't you going home? Your wife must be waiting. His pace became slower. He lived in one of those line houses in the suburbs of the city. Suburbs means a residential place which is located at the outskirts of a city. So he lived in one of the line houses in the suburbs of the city where low income people thronged. Thronged means lived in a crowded manner. His wife was a bundle of complaints. Look at how he describes his wife, a bundle of complaints. Their two married daughters were sent back because the dowries had not been paid in full. We also have certain comments on the social setup of those times. The two married daughters, they were sent back to Shekhara Pillai's house because he hadn't completed the payment with respect to the dowry. On this retirement day, their husbands might have come to demand more money and settle accounts. So it was as if, a selling and a purchase was done earlier, and their husbands, Shekhara Pillai's two daughters' husbands, they might come today to settle the accounts. He felt profoundly weary. Weary means tired. Again, he felt lonely in the bylanes of his mind. If guests came to stay, his wife usually slept in the kitchen. So that is the kind of house they had. If guests came, then she had to sleep in the kitchen. And perhaps it was only she who slept in the kitchen. Perhaps Shekhara Pillai had a bed, had a room of his own. So all these are indicative of the kind of society that was prevalent then, that existed then. And as there was no front yard, his square coat was put outside the gate. So he did have a coat, he did have a bed, and he used to place that bed outside the gate, and he slept outside the house. Once on a moonlit night, when he reached home, he saw a dog on his cot. His cot means, as I said earlier, it's a small bed. So one day when he reached home, he saw a dog, which curled up into sleep on his cot. He did not feel like disturbing it. The moonbeams seemed to have created a magical world. Peace and quiet reigned everywhere. There was no sign of people or noises, so usual during mornings. When he went closer, the dog jumped up, looked at him, and began barking. Someone in a nearby house cursed loudly and went back to sleep. Shekhara Pillai sat on the edge of the cot cautiously. The dog stopped barking and began to howl at the moon. So you have a short digression over there. You have the description of an event that happened. Now all these are memories that come to us. He is going through his final hours at the hospital, and all these are memories that come to him. Something like a stream of consciousness technique, where you sketch everything that come to a character's mind onto the paper, and this is what we read at present. A loud cry splintered his thoughts and whisked by. Splintered his thought means it cut through his thoughts and whisked by. Whisked by means to move, with a swishing sound. Walking on, he had reached the long row of hospital cells. At the very sight of his shadow, several hands stretched out between the bars in a line. Each hand held a prayer, a plea. So everyone, they were making request to Shekhara Pillai. There were souls yearning for different things, from money for a cup of tea to mercy killing. So these were the kind of requests that the inmates made to Shekhara Pillai. Please kill me, or please give me money for a cup of tea. These are some of the requests that they used to air to Shekhara Pillai. The sibilant sound of his cane was enough to kill those loud wails and drive them to silence. But he did not feel like doing it that day. So normally what he would have done is he would have shown his cane. He would have thrashed his cane on the jail walls probably, and that would have made all the inmates to be silent. But today he did not feel like doing it. The noise grew louder by the minute. Someone spat violently and the spittle fell on his big toe. Complaints and abuses grew louder. The humming sound of a song rose amidst all these noises and flowed from a corner. It was so familiar. The singing began. It was as though something inside had melted and was overflowing in sync with the rising and falling notes. So the song, perhaps it is indicative of the kind of change that has come over Shekhara Pillai. Earlier, he used to thrash them with sticks. He used to frighten the inmates with sticks. But as of now, he doesn't do it. He doesn't want to do it. Possibly because it's his last day. And this song, it represented the melting and overflowing emotions that Shekhara Pillai carried in his mind. It was as though something inside had melted and was overflowing, and did in sync with the rising and falling notes. Looking at the turbulent pane, someone burst into peals of laughter. He walked on slowly, a hand extended from the last cell. Someone asked in a low tone, "Watchman, will you post this for me?" So somebody wants to post something, and he takes the help of Watchman. A soiled envelope that had no address. So this is what Shekhara Pillai gets. A soiled envelope without any address. As usual, he took it. So this happened not for the first time, it happened earlier as well. And as usual, Shekhara Pillai takes it. For years, he had known its contents. So for years, that person, whoever that handed over the letter to Shekhara Pillai, the envelope to Shekhara Pillai, that person has been doing it for a long time. And Shekhara Pillai knew the content of the letter. Yet that day he opened the cover and pulled out the letter. So it is that day that matters. It is that day that is influencing whatever that Shekhara Pillai does. He did not want to beat the inmates. He no more wants to, frighten the inmates with his cane. And even though he knows the content of the letter, he opens it and reads it. So it is his retirement day that is influencing Shekhara Pillai's actions. So let's see what is there in the letter. What is the content? A piece of blank white paper with so many folds that it was torn right down the middle, like a wound splitting the heart. So there was nothing in the letter. So this is probably why we were said that Shekhara Pillai knows the content of the letter. There was nothing in it. There was nothing written in it. Watchman, before you go, please lock up Thomas inside his cell. It's full moon tonight, you know. Sister Lucia's voice, as she was taking a file to the superintendent's room, sounded as if it was from the other side of time. The other side of time means probably a different world. See, she sounded so mysterious. There was something magical, and that is why her sound is being described as coming from the other side of time. So please note that we are gradually passing into that fantastical plane, that realm of fantasy. The sunlight had faded completely. His day was coming to an end. Putting Thomas back in the cell was the last of his daily duties before locking the gate and leaving. Thomas had not spoken a word to anyone. All through the day he sat perched on the highest branch of a mango tree near the gate and looked at the city. In the evening, when the watchman was about to leave, he climbed down and went to the ward. He was absolutely calm on all days except on full moon nights. So this is yet another character that we confront as we progress on this particular story. We came across Kochitresia, we came across Dakshani Amma, we came across a person who used to assume so many characters, a person who gave him an envelope to post, to post, who asked Shekhara Pillai to post a particular envelope. We also come across this character called Thomas, who was calm on all other days except on full moon nights. And today it is a full moon night, and that is probably why Sister Lucia warned Shekhara Pillai to lock up Thomas before he went home. By the time Shekhara Pillai reached the mango tree, Thomas had obediently come down and was walking back to the ward. So it is as if this person was so normal. He was so calm. He was at the top of the mango tree. He had perched himself on the mango tree, on one of the branches of the mango tree. And when he saw Shekhara Pillai approaching, he gradually climbs down and he goes back to the ward. Pillai could feel that inexplicable grief returning. Inexplicable means something which cannot be explained. Glancing at the hospital for the last time, he moved towards the gate. So we know that this is Shekhara Pillai's last day at his job at this mental hospital, and he recollected so many events and characters as part of his, as he was experiencing the last hours at this particular space. And he glanced, or he gave one final look at the hospital, and he moved towards the gate. Just then Thomas called from behind, "Watchman, Don't go away. It's full of mad people out there. So this is the kind of warning that Shekhara Pillai gets when he's ready to leave the premises. Thomas says, please don't go away. There are mad people all around you, outside. Startled, he stood rooted at the spot. So he is shocked, Shekhara Pillai is shocked, and he couldn't move. He stayed at that particular spot. This is what he witnesses outside. Outside, a mad rush of vehicles, the incessant blare of horns. Incessant means non-stop. The incessant blare of horns, Dolby music screaming from theaters, a huge roadside hoarding of an actress eager to peel off her clothes, a crowd of youngsters laughing and talking boisterously, unable to take their eyes off the hoarding, a speeding motorist showering expletives. Expletives means obscene expressions, dirty comments. Expletives on a mother and daughter stranded in the middle of a road. A youngster driving his bike on the footpath and stalking a girl. Stalking means, going after a girl. A policeman pretending not to notice it. A photo of a pregnant woman, her stomach cut open, sprayed with petrol and set on fire, on a newspaper sheet blown by the winds and now lying near the roadside lamp post. A beggar picking it up to hold leftovers taken from a garbage can. So these are the sights and sounds that he come across when he moves out of the hospital. It's as if what Thomas said is gradually revealing itself to be truth. It's full of mad people out there. That is what Thomas, the mad person, said to uh, Shekhara Pillai. Inside. So this is what happened outside. Inside. Inside means inside of Shekhara Pillai. Inside. Dowry amounts piling upon the choir court. Put outside. Life that was left behind like an unrepayable debt. The dog howling at the moon. All these were inside his head now. So outside he witnessed mad things happen, and he was also gradually becoming insane from within. He was thinking about all the troubles that he is going to confront when he reaches his home. He was seeing and hearing more than usual. With his inner eye, he could read the couplets of the song that had melted and flowed from inside the hospital cell. He could see what was written in the paper, torn in the middle. God, wasn't the unwritten address etched in his memory? So it's as if he is equating himself with whoever is there in the mental asylum. It's as if he is gradually becoming one among them. That is why I earlier said that this story passes from factual information to fantastical ideas, to a realm of fantasy. Now he was seeing and hearing more than usual. This is his gradual transition. With his inner eye, he could read the couplets of the song. So it is as if he could understand what the song meant, what the lyrics meant, what the couplets meant. And he could even see what was written in the envelope that was given to him. God, wasn't the unwritten address etched in his memory? So it's as if that writ address, which was not actually written in the envelope, was actually visible to him. He could read it through his inner eye. Throwing the letter to the world, he followed Thomas, stepped into the cell, and locked himself in. This is what Shekhara Pillai does all on a sudden. He throws the letter into the outside world, and he goes in with Thomas. He goes into the cell of Thomas and he locks himself in. He walked on and faded into the endless cave of his own self. The moon shone instantly, beckoning him with a wide smile. So this is where the story ends. You can interpret the ending as Shekhara Pillai, he recognizes the mad things that happen outside, the mad people that are out there, and he prevents himself from going outside to meet yet another mad world. or probably Shekhara Pillai himself becomes mad. And that is perhaps why he says that he could understand the lines of or the lyrics of the song that was sung earlier, and he could understand what was written in the envelope that was given to him earlier. So probably he became insane or himself, and that is why he locked himself inside the cell of Thomas. Yes, so I hope you have an understanding regarding the author Ashitha, as well as the story that we just read now, which is in the Moonlit Land. Thank you so much for being with me here today. I'll see you in the next session.